After informing Moshe a few times that the Levites will replace the firstborn as those who will serve in the Mishkan, God finally instructs Moshe in this week's parsha, BeHaalotechah, to invest the Levites into their new position. At the end of the directive, God tells Moshe, "V'hivdaltet haLeviyim mitoch bnei Yisrael, v'hayu li haLeviyim." You shall separate the Levites from within the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine. The Levites were a tribe of Israel just like all the other tribes of Israel. What then was the purpose for separating the Levites? Onkelos explains that just as Israel is separated from the nations, the Levites and the Kohanim will be separate from among the rest of Israel. The Netziv understands God's directive to be that Moshe is to command the Levites to separate themselves from the rest of the nation. Rav Saadia Gaon takes a different tact and explains that Moshe needed to isolate the Levites from the rest of Israel. Either way, once they are separated, the Levites will then be able to belong to God. Abarbanel explains that the purpose for separating the Levites was to prepare them to take over the duties to serve in the Mishkan from the firstborn. In practice, it meant for Moshe to organize the Levites into groups and shifts, making sure that they would immediately be able to serve God in the Mishkan in an organized manner. Malbim agrees and says that Moshe needed to take the actions, as described by the Torah, in order to help prepare the Levites to do their job of serving God. We do not need to be taken aback by God's directive of separation. The idea or action of separation is explicitly and implicitly found many times in the Torah. Avraham, for instance, was separated from the nations around him. He was the prince of God, and as such was somewhat separated from the rest of the world. Bilam, in his attempted cursing of Israel, tells us that Israel is a nation that stands alone. In Parshat Kedoshim, God tells us that he separated Israel from among the nations and accordingly bestowed the land upon Israel. Separation is also true by objects or ideas. For instance, during the 7 days of creation, God separated the light and the dark, the upper waters from the lower waters, and the day and night and seasons. Or later in the Torah, God separated the kosher animals from the non-kosher. The purpose of this separation was to create a clear delineation of one group or thing from the other, not because it was to separate good from evil or bad from good, but to take two similar things and demonstrate different purpose. Taking this idea will then help us to understand what God was instructing Moshe to do. God wanted Moshe to separate the Levites from the rest of Israel in order to delineate the boundaries between Israel and the Levites. Once the boundaries were in place, God could then give each of them a different purpose. Israel to be a light unto the nations, and the Levites, by serving in the Mishkan and as teachers, to be a light unto Israel. Together, they are both his nation. Shabbat Shalom.